I'll be completely transparent. I think we made $8,000 profit. That was all our profit that year. If every agent doubles their business, that's much better to me than doubling my agents. Don't grow to grow. Grow for purpose. Grow for the person.
Number 1 in SF, number 5 in the state for volume, top 20 nationally, and then the merger of Polaris. A merger and acquisition in real estate is uncommon.
It's not just the product. It's not just I'm getting agents. I'm getting people who will benefit our culture. When you grow, things start making more financial sense on a bigger scale. That was a benefit. I could provide these services now to all these agents that I wasn't able to do when we were small. I've made plenty of mistakes, but if you don't take these risks, if you don't anticipate the growth and anticipate your success in the future, you'll never achieve it. If you hire before you're profitable, thinking that it's going to make you profitable, you're going to fail.
Looking at like the numbers, number 1 in SF, number 5 in the state for volume, and then top 20 nationally. But you have a thought that you want to say boutique as you grow, which is kind of contradictory a little bit to the size of volume that you have.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you when you think about that?
I want to be quality, not quantity, right? I want to be small but mighty. I've partnered with a national company inside. So the firepower can come from them. But I think what's important is to be true to what you know, and that's Bay Area real estate. If you get too big, you can't focus on your strengths, and our strengths is our markets locally. So although we would love to sell more, our ultimate goal is to take the best care of our clients. I think if you get too big, you can't do that.
When you think about the challenges of growing, and you want to keep growing in production and volume, but trying to stay small too, like how do you deal with those challenges of growing volume, but not like too much headcount?
I mean, again, like you can grow in two ways, volume in two ways. You can hire more agents, or the agents that you have can increase their volume. And I rather focus on that. So, if we have too many agents, I can't be personally involved in the growth of those agents. So, if every agent doubles their business, that's much better to me than doubling my agents.
There's someone that I spoke to, and like one frame of mind was saying you just have to grow headcount to grow volume. What's your thoughts?
No, I think you grow strategically. I think if you hire just to hire, you'll poison the company. There's, one bad apple spoils a bunch. I think that's true. I think it's important if you're going to hire and grow that they're the right agents. And I think that we've been really strategic and successful in making sure that the people we hired gel really well. And if you just hire to hire, it is a temporary growth. You'll end up losing agents long-term, and it doesn't benefit the company.
And you've mentioned like strategic twice. Kelly said you have a way of like growing the business your way, and you grow intentionally, you grow smart. There are two things: the merger of Polaris, and then the most recent one, the generation. A merger and acquisition in real estate is uncommon. When you think about like the first deal, Polaris, how did that even come into your idea to do something like that?
Yeah.
And what were the challenges? So
Polaris was run by Ron Apta, who I had worked with back in the TRI Cole banker days. So I've known Ron for 20 plus years. I looked at him as a big brother. He someone I respected, someone whose company I respected, but more importantly, I liked every single person that he worked with. And I think that's the first thing. When you hire or merge with anyone, you want someone who's ethical. Then you want someone who are good people. And good people, I mean that say yes, who contribute. And then third, you want a good agent. You can always teach someone to be a good agent. You can't teach someone to be a good person. And so when I looked at Ron and Polaris, they were great people. They were all ethical, and they just happened to be awesome agents. And so, I know that Ron wanted to continue selling. I didn't, at the time, didn't know that he really wanted to focus on selling and less on management. So it ended up being just a very cohesive blend where I could work, I could be the one helping him manage, But the benefit was that everyone just fit perfectly together.
When like a merger is basically kind of like we were talking a little earlier, it's like a marriage.
Yeah.
You have to make sure like the vision, the values align. Like, how did you think through that and make sure like, okay, you want to build this for decades?
Yeah.
So
in any marriage, you date first, right? So Ron and I dated in terms of how it would work out. Long term, would there be retention? Would his agents want to stay at City Real Estate? Long term, could I help them grow? Like, what's the benefit to them? So any partnership, any merger, you want something that's mutually beneficial. Not something that will only help City Real Estate, only help Ron. We want something that was going to help these agents. And I thought, 1 + 1 = 3. Like, we together would be more powerful. We together have a broader range. And, we could benefit from partnerships outside, third-party partnerships that we might not have been able to do in a smaller sense. So something called RERM, which is Real Estate Risk Management. It only makes sense if you have a certain amount of agents. Mm-hmm. There's something called Hino, which is a listing presentation software. There's Real Scout, which is a third-party company that lets you search your clients search the MLS, but not on the MLS. And when you grow, things start making more financial sense on a bigger scale. So that was a benefit. I could provide these services now to all these agents that I wasn't able to do when we were smaller.
Makes sense. And selfishly, like, I'm going through a merger, and I got a lot of questions about it because the numbers kind of look similar. So it's like you had 35 agents, he had 15. Some people are like, why even do it? They're smaller. Like,
it was the people, right? It's and depending on what your merger or what your acquisition is, it's not just the product that you are getting, and it's not just I'm getting agents. I'm getting people who will benefit our culture. There are people who now give us the quantity or the benefit of scale in terms of third-party services, but it also, in a way, legitimizes your company, right? All of a sudden you're a third bigger in size. You bring in a name brand in what was Polaris. And so even though, no one needs to be validated in our industry more than, their own success, I was able to benefit from Ron's.
Was there any like thought of like key man risk with like Ron, or like, no?
No, he's a great. It's funny, you envision like the perfect scenario of things working out, and it's worked out perfectly. I mean, Ron, again, I said before, he's like a big brother to me.
Yeah.
I mean, we talk daily. We've had 3 calls. We started at 8:30 this morning with a client. We balance each other really, really well, and it couldn't have gone better. I mean, you might want to talk to the agents. I think they're all happy, the one on both sides, but it's been knock on wood, it's been a real success.
There's challenges with like, I know side facilitated part of the deal, but just like legal, financial, like you mentioned earlier, retention risk.
Yeah. There was the lawyers involved. I mean, in the agreements, we went over it. But again, when something is mutually beneficial, you just want to lay out the framework so that if something in dissolution happens, that there is structure. But honestly, it was really, really simple. And the one with Generation, the partnership with Generation is the same way. I mean, again, that was Lamise is someone I've always respected. Someone I think is like the top of the top in San Francisco real estate. And I was so lucky to have the opportunity to partner with her. And it has been as smooth as we could have hoped for.
So if you're speaking to like someone else who's like, hey, I want to look for the same thing in my market, like what are the things that you look for? And then
don't look for production. Don't look for look for the quality of the person, right? If you think that the the partnership is going to work on a personal level and a professional level, that you're going to get along with the person, the people, and ethically you're on the same page. Culturally, I mean, that you agree on everything. That's how success is formed, not by saying, oh, this person does X amount of business, I want that to be part of our company.
And if you had to think in their head, what did they look into you, or if someone else is trying to be like you
I have them fooled. I got them fooled. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why these top agents. I think that we're aligned on the success. I mean, we are creating a long-lasting San Francisco company. Ron is a Bay Area native. Lamis is a San Francisco native. They also grew up in real estate families. They want to create something like I did that is long lasting. When people think of San Francisco real estate, we all want them to think of city real estate. And I think that was the thing that brought us all together.
I'm sure your mind was like, okay, how do I keep retention? What do I do to make them happy? Like, what are some of the things that you did?
Well, I met with the agents on each one of their each one of their companies and talked to them and said, what are you trying to achieve? Let me see how I can help you. And I think they looked at it as a benefit. Not only did they have Ron helping them or Lamis helping them, now they had me helping them. It's not that I am particularly great at this job, but I have a keen sense of how to help people grow their business organically. And I think that is attractive to younger, hungrier agents, or agents that want to preserve their production without having to work as much. And I think they saw my true intent, which was to help them grow. And I think that was a welcome. Also, like, the people here at City are really nice, and they when you're surrounded by people that you like, it's more fun to come to work. I mean, I remember being at a company a long time ago where it was very cutthroat. People, you'd go in and they wouldn't share information. And it just wasn't, fun to go to work. Here, like, people are really excited about other people's success. I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. And everyone I spoke to researching for this interview, they had literally nothing but nice things to say. So it's
again, I have everyone fooled. I mean, I think it goes back to the golden rule. Like, you treat people like you want to treat you want them to treat you.
At each stage, like, you think of you early on when you had 3 agents to before the first merger was 35.
Yeah.
Before the next was like 50 to 60.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think you had to learn as like a leader at each stage?
Well, I think that you always want to be humble, right? Know that there's things that you don't know. But also I think it's important to take risks. When they had 3 agents, this was actually never my intent to be 70 agents. I think you have to take that blind leap. And also, like, sometimes just go with the path that's in front of you. Like, if you told me that I wanted to run a big San Francisco company, like, that was never my goal. My goal is always to help clients. But by running a bigger company, I can help more clients. I can help more people find their home. So I think taking a blind leap is important. Being humble, recognizing you don't know things, listening to people, but also doing the right thing. I think that's the most important thing. Like, it is easy sometimes to do the wrong thing. Sometimes it's easier to, do something that is always do the right thing. I guess that's all I was saying. It will benefit you in the long run. You'll feel better as a person, but be fair, treat people well, and you'll succeed.
Nice. And when you looking at like the team now,
yeah,
like what? And we'll go backwards and look at like where you started, but looking at the resources that you have now and the things that you mentioned a few, but
yeah,
what is the difference of things that you can do at scale now compared to before?
So we have 2 directors of operations in-house. One handles the everything from the paperwork, the onboarding, but we also have a director of operations that helps our agents prep properties for the market. So every agent here has can access Michael, who's our director of operation. We also have Joey, who's our lead designer and project manager. So we take the prep off the agent's hands. These are full-time employees, and if we are 3 agents, we don't have the ability to do that.
Yeah.
At this level, we have something that I don't think any other company in San Francisco has. We cater to our agents, and because we've grown, we have the ability to do this. In a small company, you don't.
Kind of at each stage too, you're building into something like new, and you don't know how you want to build it.
I'm glad you're bringing this up, because as you grow, you have to take a step back. Like, I didn't realize this. I thought, okay, it's always more, it'll be more profitable, when you hire agents. And that's not the case, because you have to build the infrastructure to support all those agents. So I think at 30 agents, at 60 agents, and these are rough numbers, you have to take 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward. You will have to build you have to have a stronger infrastructure. So you have to hire more admin, you have to hire more employees to support those. So there are these times where you don't grow vertically. You might grow plateau for a little bit before you climb the next mountain.
Does that ever keep you up at night, like the extra added salary overhead?
Totally. I mean, it's keeping me up right now. I mean, we are expanding our presence in Marin. We have a 4-person office there. We are about to sign a lease on a big space. We have to build out that space. And it's one of those weird situations where, you want to recruit, but you have to build, if you build it, they will come. But it's going to cost you money to build. So, I'm at this place where, again, back to that blind leap or the leap of faith, that, if I spend all this money, that I'll be able to recruit agents there. So yeah, I mean, it does keep me up at night, but, I've been lucky that I've always landed on my feet, and, I've made plenty of mistakes, but, if you don't take these risks, if you don't anticipate the growth and anticipate your success in the future, you'll never achieve it.
What's kind of helped you take those risks? What'd you have to learn, or who'd you learn from?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, financially, I still sell, right? I manage the company and I still sell. So I have my own production. So I try to manage the company, independently of myself. So it's, if I, God forbid, was hit by a bus tomorrow, the company would still survive without me. So, it's a profitable company. It runs itself. But God forbid we have another pandemic or something that is really takes down our market. I at least have my own production that I can supplement and be a lifeline to the company.
Yeah, it's interesting because I saw that. It's like you sell and you have we were talking, you're going to do 100 million this year, and the team in total or entire organization is going to do about close to $1 billion roughly. And it's it kind of offsets each other when you have the profitability on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, ideally, I get much more excitement out of my agent's success. But, it is a business, and I need to make sure that there's my bills get paid and the company's bills get paid. So I like always having a backup plan. And my backup plan is, if the company needs the money, I can always put my own, dollars, my own commissions back into the company, which is one. I think going back to your questions, what else have when I'm not sleeping at night, what else makes me, things I've learned. I think the thing that I've learned is if you do go through the motions, I'm a big sports fan, right? And, you see people in slumps and they say, just keep on swinging, keep on doing it. I think that's the same thing in this business. If you are doing the right things, keep on doing them. The phone will call, will ring, the client will come back. As long as you do what you do well, you will succeed. And I think that always is an important thing. And I try to teach my agents that call your clients, get into these routines. And that makes me, sleep better at night knowing that I'm doing everything.
I imagine you probably had to get pretty efficient with your time to be able to do both. How do you balance your production and the organization's production?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm probably, this is one of my weaker points. So I used to have a memory where I didn't have to write anything down. Right. My whole week I had it in my head. I wouldn't say a photographic memory, but like I remembered everything. I woke up in the morning, I have this to do. As I gotten older, that has not been the case. I have to write things down. And so I think that's what my weakness is, my organizational, I don't use a CRM. I don't use, the only thing I use is a calendar, right? Like I write things put in my calendar. Um, I think what I have tend to do is just answer the phone at all times, right? So if it's my client, I answer the phone. If it's an agent, I answer the phone. And what I lack, I think, is my own personal time, right? I have two small children. I have a 6 and a 3-year-old who take up time. So it's probably not sustainable, but at the current, where I am right now, it's when the phone rings, I answer it. When see an email, I have time to get the emails, I respond. But I don't have enough, say Mondays or company time, Tuesdays or my personal business, it all overlaps. And I'd like to get more organized.
It's kind of like the idea of like there's no such thing as like work-life balance. It's work-life integration.
Totally.
How you mix together.
Yeah, my non-work life is my children, right? Like I coach their baseball, their soccer. My free time is now their time, which I'm happy of.
Yeah. And did you have to like hire? Because some people thinking like he's doing 100 million in production with no CRM is pretty wild.
Old school Excel spreadsheets.
Excel
spreadsheets. I have a good team too. I have two wonderful agents. I have a director of operations who help me stay organized, take showings and things like that. But no, I mean, I just write down. I think what has helped me is my knowledge of my clients' needs. Like, when I see a property, I think of that person and then I send the email. But luckily enough, my business now is repeat and referral business. I'm not, looking for leads or things like that. So I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, that's nice. But you would say hiring the director of operations was like a big help from a support.
Yeah. I mean, like, she does everything from, the files for me to, disclosure packages, putting them together to setting up inspections, things like that, and putting it in my calendar. But my agents on my team are just incredible in terms of making sure not only that I don't miss an appointment, that I don't miss an email too.
Nice. If you're like someone who's already producing, we can take a step back before that first, but like someone who's producing, one of the things he was curious about is like his first hire, like thinking through like where should he put his money, like looking at what you did and then what you would do now.
Yeah, I mean, I always think you got to stay lean. You got to stay very lean. There's been times where I purposely didn't hire probably someone who would have been great because I knew the economy was on a in a position where it might change, and it wasn't the time. So the fewer people you can hire, the better. So I would be hire better than more. I think you have someone, a jack of all trades, a Renaissance person who can really help you start the company. I mean, in essence, what we started at Real Estate was a startup, right? And in any startup field, you wear a lot of hats and you do things. So hire someone who can wear a lot of hats. Don't hire many people. As you grow, find out the need that you need to fill. For us, it was marketing. So we hired someone to do marketing. Then we needed someone to help prep properties. Then it was that position. But in the beginning, when we were 3, it was, I think we had, 3 agents and 1 person. And that 1 person ran the company for, I don't know, until we had 20.
It's the difference of hiring for need and not want.
Yes. I mean, you can have someone do everything. I mean, now we're at a spot where we're lucky enough to have the ability. We have someone who runs our social media. We have someone who runs our marketing. We have someone who runs the design. Like, when be profitable first before you hire those positions. You got to be profitable at one point, and then you hire positions. Then you might slip out of that profitability when you hire to create the infrastructure. But make sure you're profitable first. If you hire before you're profitable, thinking that it's going to make you profitable, you're gonna fail.
Yeah, and then you're stuck with the overhead.
Totally. So our market is one that is not consistent. We're in a business where the economy can affect it, natural disasters can affect it. A lot of things can affect the business, and that's something that I think is really important. That I have structured that, like, I do a stress test almost. Like, if we do 20% of the business we did last year, can we survive? No. If it's 30%, okay, know that number, right? So if you're getting close to that number, you can proactively make decisions that will sustain the company going forward, rather than, suddenly see in the books, oh, I've lost money, I'm losing money. Well, if you know that your business is on a trajectory that's 30% less, and that's the number that really affects you, proactively make those decisions so you don't get to that place.
So do you plan quarterly, review monthly?
I have I've hired a team. There's someone like a fractional CFO that I meet with once every 2 weeks that go through all my numbers. I don't have a business degree. I'm learning to be a businessman as I go, right? Like, I'm a salesperson. I hopefully I have acumen, but I don't think that's my natural ability is to sell, and not. So I'm learning. So I have this duo that builds models for me, and really helps me forecast the future. And I think that's the best money I've spent recently. As I said, I use Excel, but I don't do it for models. I do it just to put names and what they're looking for in a spreadsheet. So yeah, that has been a really important thing. I have a bookkeeper. I have a CPA. Knowing what trajectory you're on, but also knowing, modeling it, the stress testing, and on the other end, if we have a good year, how much ability do we have to grow in terms of hiring new positions.
And when you think of the org chart and you look at what you did, if you were building it again, would you hire different people first, or would you build it differently at all? Or
no, I think we did it right, and it was by accident, right? I think actually, I don't know if it was by accident. I think Side helped me a lot. I mean, they give you a business manager who has been great, and it advised me on the right process. I mean, maybe I would have had different hires here and there, but I think the order, the specific positions were right. I mean, the one thing that we don't have is a sales manager role, or even a COO role to run the actual company. I've wore those hats. I've looked to hire both those positions at times, but worried about the state of the market and worried about keeping them on if things changed. And so I think that's probably our next goal or next position hire. But I want to make sure we're in a position financially that I never have to worry about a market upswing or downswing.
Nice. Yeah. And so I guess talking a little specifically, if you're going to say the first 3 to 5 hires, what were okay, these maybe 3 to 5.
Director of operations, someone who, and that could be, I mean, they're the ones who helps with all the onboarding when agents come, because that's the most important thing. When someone switches from a company, they want to feel welcome. They want to feel they're supported. They want to make sure that it's the right decision to come to this company. So someone who can make that transition easy. That's an important. Operations in a new company is everything. We say operations, but it's everything from sometimes paying the bills to painting the walls, right? That's someone who's your ride or die, someone who's your backbone is important. I think that is the very first hire. They'll be doing your marketing for you. They'll be doing everything. I think as you grow, you're going to need a marketing person. To what capacity that is. We have a new one actually joining us this coming week, and we've had good ones in the past, because they are the face or create the face of the company, and they are the ones who send out all the marketing for all your listings. That's a really important position. Um, some people will argue a sales manager is an important role. That is, if the person who's running the company doesn't, act in that capacity. And I've been acting in that capacity. But, I'm learning as I go. I mean, I think that's really an important thing for like, you will make mistakes. It's important to make those mistakes to find out what you really need. I've talked to a lot of these other companies outside, and they've had complete overhauls. They've taken, I remember talking to an agent out of Napa, and she said, I let everyone go because it just wasn't working out. The culture wasn't right. Things weren't right. And you start over. And like, sometimes that's, what you do. I'm lucky enough. I haven't had to be in that position, but, I think you learn from your mistakes.
Was there any specific mistake that you can recall that was like a big learning lesson?
Yeah, I mean, I think one mistake that it's not in terms of like employees, but it's more in terms of recruiting agents. I was originally trying to recruit my contemporaries, people who were doing 100 to 200 million in sales. And, and I realized like those people don't necessarily want to come work for me, right? They want to work, for companies where they can be the lead. And so I pivoted early to agents that were younger, growing their business, or maybe even established agents trying to grow. I was much more successful recruiting agents who I could help versus agents who felt that I couldn't help them. And so that is what I think the biggest thing, and that's where like City Real Estate really went from 3 to 20 agents, is that I switched on who I thought would be the right agent in San Francisco, or right agent for us in San Francisco.
Yeah. And how do you, when you're like, okay, we know who to go after, but now they have to kind of fit the culture and make sure they'll align, like, how do you get through that in like interviews or?
Yeah, so usually these deals came from people I had done a deal with and I liked. I go back to what I said. You hire people first that are ethical, and so you can tell right away in transactions, like people, if they're ethical, then good people. So I would have coffee with them. I'd learn about their families. I'd learn about like what they like to do, and felt that it was a match. I mean, we've purposely not offered jobs to people whose production were very high just because I didn't think it was a right fit. And then, third, I want this to be a mutually beneficial partnership. So I want to know how I can help them. Obviously, if you're successful, the people who want to get or have a goal, those are the people I always like. It could be to work less, and that's still something that I'm happy to help. But you won't want to hire people or partner with people that you feel you can't help, right? Yeah. Like I only want to sell in one building and I want to do one deal a year. Well, those probably aren't the right people to join City Real Estate. But the agent who's like, I'm slowing down. I want to enjoy more time with my family, but I still want to maintain my my business. Like, can you help me with that? Yeah, I'd love to help you with that. But yeah, so.
And when because you've probably interviewed a lot, you've met with a ton of agents, you probably have a sense of like beyond splits, because splits don't really.
It's funny, we don't even talk. Yeah, we rarely talk about splits in the first meeting, right? I offer the job before we even talk about splits.
So what do you think agents want and need in an organization?
Yeah, they want support. They want someone who knows they have their back. Right. I am an only child, and I think that, obviously there's good and bad from that. But I think one of the things is I treat my agents like my family. Right. And if they need anything, anything professionally or non-professionally, I'm there to help. I think they see that. I think they also see that I work really, really hard. And I think that that's an important thing. If I am technically the leader of this company, you want to look up to someone who's going to be working harder than you are, right? And that's oftentimes not the case. Yeah. There's people who run companies who want to benefit from their agents. I want my agents to benefit from me, and I think that makes a real difference. I want them to see how I work. I want them to see that you get, more bees with honey than you do with vinegar, to be nice to people. When it's easy to do the wrong thing and harder to do the right thing, you do the right thing. And I think that people see that and want to be surrounded by people similar to them, if that's how they act.
Yeah, there's kind of like an era of like different type of leadership. It was, I don't want to say it was like, it's not his fault, so I'm just prefacing it, but like during the Steve Jobs era is like kind of leading with a stick versus honey type situation.
Yeah.
And you're starting to see a switch in that in leadership.
Yeah, I mean, I do something, again, I don't know if these are the right things, but I am not when I give someone a split, it's a split for life. They can go up, but they'll never go down. Because I think if people are worried about hitting numbers or like fearful of things, they don't go to their potential. I think you want to make people feel comfortable. I think people do their best work when they're not afraid or looking over their shoulder. People disagree with this, but that's my take. Like, I am not Iron Fist. There is no rulers. But if someone says, I want to take 6 months off and want to spend time with family, like, I think they should do that. I don't think they should have to worry about their splits dropping down.
So Netflix is very popular for this too. It's like hiring for culture, but then they say we're not necessarily a family, we're like a sports team. Like, what's your take on that, like, divide of like building an organization like a family, like a sports team, somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to think about, I mean, I love the idea of sports analogies. I like sports. So, I mean, I do think of our company as in a sports way, in that we have a minor league system. We have agents that come in that we try to grow and bring them up to the big leagues. So I like that sense, and then I'm invested in them. But I think that's similar to a family. Like, if you're a dad, and I'm not saying I'm a dad at any capacity to my agents, but a brother and a cousin, I want to see them succeed.
Yeah.
And so I'll do anything in my power to do that. I want to put them in the right position. I want to give them the resources. So I think there are some overlapping qualities of both a family and a sports team.
Is there like holding them to a certain standard or not?
Well, you know what I do? I tell them what they should be doing. And for example, I think it's really important to have your clients be the marketing tool for you, right? You do a great job for a client that they're at the proverbial water cooler. So, oh, I need a real estate agent. Like, I want that client to be the one, like, oh, I have a great one for you. And so the best way to do that is to be in the forefront of your past clients' minds, right? And so what I do is I check in with my clients regularly. If it's a text or I just drove by their house, I call and say, oh, just thinking about you, drove by your house. And I encourage my clients to call their client, or my agents to call their clients to step in. So I give them the tools. It's like I say, here's your fishing pole, go fish. If they choose to do it, they don't. But I don't force them to do anything. There's no accountability beyond, me meeting with them and saying, have you done this? I really believe that you can't push someone to be motivated. They're either motivated or not.
Yeah. So how do you, when you think of, let's say maybe you're thinking of hiring a sales manager in the next like 1 to 3 years, how do you think through, okay, I want this person to have the same type of...
Yeah, I want that sales manager to know the tricks, know what they should be doing, right? And then I also want that sales manager to be able to answer the questions that help. It goes back to being a resource for our agents. I just got this counter offer. I have 10 minutes to respond. How would I word this? Like, that kind of stuff is a part of a sales manager job. But the other one is like, I want to grow my business in this building. What are some strategic, what are some tools or ways, do I hold an open house for renters and try to get those renters to become buyers? Like, I want them to cover the day-to-day, but I also want that sales manager to think big picture, the macro as well.
So I used to think growing on YouTube was hard until I learned the game of YouTube. Now we manage over 30 of the top real estate channels from 0 to 50,000 subscribers, and they each generate over $250,000 in extra GCI every single year. And here's the one thing that I learned. YouTube is not a video quality game, it's a packaging game, meaning it's all about the topics and how you package them. That's why we send the top 10 highest performing outlier videos every single week in our newsletter. We
We track over 150 of the top real estate channels across the country and way more outside the industry to give you the 10 highest performing outlier videos every single week to inspire your next video. So if you want 10 free ideas every single week sent to your inbox, click the link in the description below and join the Breaking and Building Leaders newsletter and join over 7,000 agents who get the 10 best outlier videos sent directly to their inbox every single week to inspire their next video. Join the newsletter today. It's completely for free.
So would that probably be someone, is that someone who's like growing within in
No,
sales manager or hiring outside?
Well, could grow someone hire internally, but it's more someone who has experience, right? It's not that new agent. It's the agent who's seen the ups and downs of the market, the agent who has been someone who has just not only been a manager, who's also been an agent, someone who understands there's a difference sometimes on what you're supposed to do and what is practical. Meaning that, in a disclosure, you're supposed to say all these things, but oftentimes your client doesn't want to say all these things. How do you respond to your client and tell them that they need to say these things? Like, I think that someone who has experience, I think that a sales manager is someone who's seen it all and has experience.
Nice. And when you think of like the future of like teams, the future of kind of like real estate, where do you kind of see that going?
So I think real estate is like any business. There's a pendulum that swings one way and then swings back the other way. We saw the big brokerage companies in the the last decade, the Compasses, where you had to be at the big company. They have the big market share. I think the pendulum is swinging back to boutique. I think this pendulum is swinging back to specialized. And I think that means this going back to teams, right? And so you might see teams at these big companies, but I think you're going to see smaller companies arise, similar to mine, similar to a lot of the side companies, because I think those are more knowledgeable about certain areas. There's going to be a rise in discount brokerage. There's going to be a rise in AI brokerages, but I think the people who are really knowledgeable about certain areas, geographical areas, or certain types of buildings, those will be the ones that are really going to succeed.
Specialized knowledge, probably because the general is all AI now.
Yeah.
It's like,
that's the word that everyone's using, right? But like going back to like, this is real estate is the biggest purchase of most people's lives. And although people are getting more comfortable with AI, and maybe one day they will, when people are spending this much money, they want a real person.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about markets like New York or San Francisco, where there's such diversity in the property types, even if AI is at its best, it doesn't, account for, the things you can't see, right? The foundations and things like that. And so people want a real person to navigate them. So I don't think AI is going to take over our jobs anytime soon, but I think people are going to utilize it as a tool to help the agents succeed.
Yeah, I don't think AI is not, any tech innovation never fully replaces. It just kind of enhances and changes, and you just have to learn to use it. And how are you guys kind of like leveraging AI or thinking of it?
I'm not. I mean, I should. Maybe we use it to, when we're about to meet a client for the first time we're seeing a property, we'll run the disclosure through AI just to give the key points for us to, but it's dangerous, right? AI is not perfect yet.
Yeah.
And so we still read disclosure packages from cover to cover. We still see property. And I think, a new agent, I'd warn them to be very careful. You have to see property. You can't just look at pictures. You have to read disclosure. You can't just put it through AI. We use it as a scout team, let's say that, right? Like, oh, the foundation's brick. Oh, I wouldn't have known that before seeing it. Like things like that. Or it needs all new windows. So when you meet the client, you are educated or you know what to look for, but we don't rely on it. We use it as a supplement. Let's just say that.
Okay, that's nice. And when you look at teams and boutique brokerages, what do you think each one needs to compete kind of in the next like 3 to 5 years?
So it's funny. I'm old school, and I think old school practices are still what make people succeed. see property, right? If you're a team or an agent or anything, I think it's really important to see as much real estate as possible, track it, see what it sells for, immerse yourself in the market, even if you don't have a client for it. So I still see about 40 properties a week. Some I have clients for, some I just want to see just so I know I have a pulse on the market. I think that's really important to do, stay in touch with your clients, see property. Like things that sound obvious are not what new agents are doing. They're posting themselves on Instagram. They're taking selfies in houses, and like there's something to that. Maybe fake it till you make it, so people think you're more successful than you are. But that's not how you're going to be not have long-term success. Hard work, seeing properties, understanding the value of properties, like that's what's going to make someone successful. And I think teams right now are all about putting their faces on social media. Like that's a phase that's going to flare out. What's going to be long lasting is when your clients refer you to someone else because you're so knowledgeable about the market. And that's, I think, what I would like teams and brokerages to really pound into newer agents versus other things.
I think that there's like this idea or concept where basically every industry business, like you do 90% of the same stuff, but it's when you do something long enough, you do something, it's that extra 10% or the extra 1%. It's like you build that deep level of expertise, and that like 1% is the difference. It's like massive.
Yeah. And I think that comes from repetition, right? As you said, years of doing this or practice of seeing properties, seeing what they sell for. Suddenly you become really good at pricing. Like that's been my strength is I watch the market. I take a close analytical look at the market. I've looked at stats for the last 5 years. I record the stats and graph them. So I can try to predict, where the market's going, not necessarily accurately, but I think it's really helped me in pricing. When everything is related to supply and demand, that's the biggest factor in all of real estate. And so, if you could predict what the supply is currently at a certain time and where the demand is, either, comparing it to years past or where, that will predict pricing. And that, to me, that's been my benefit. But, it took me maybe 10 years to realize that was my strength. So that's what I market to my clients is my strength. So I think it's important for people to learn what their strength is and utilize it.
Like talking about supply and demand right now is kind of like an interesting market where demand's a little interesting. It could be super low in some areas and high in others.
Yeah, I mean, it's nationally supply is really high. Nationally, if you take the United States as a whole, but San Francisco is very unique. We have always had a lack of inventory. We're surrounded by water on 3 sides, our whole city 7 miles by 7 miles, and demand is increasing. We have this big AI surge in the city. I think there's also a resurgence in the confidence in San Francisco. So we're at this unique period of time where prices are probably artificially higher than they should be with higher interest rates because demand is grown and supply is so limited. But you go to other parts of the Midwest where there's, a year's supply. I think in San Francisco, we have 2 months. It's a big difference. So it's being knowledgeable, not only about, and this goes back to a boutique company that knows their region really well, is that the United States is completely different than the San Francisco market. And you really have to have your ear to the ground locally to be successful.
Is there something that you do like daily, weekly, monthly to kind of like you're either consuming information or like you're just trying to stay in the know, stuff like that?
Yeah, every Wednesday, it's our day of our sales meeting here in the office, which we run. I take a snapshot of in contract, or active in contract, and number of new listings that week. And then I compare it to the weeks before, the same week to the year before, and the same week to like the 5 years before that. And I have it all graphed. So, when someone's thinking, oh my God, this is a really tough time, there's no inventory, sometimes it's helpful to be like, well, actually there's much more inventory than there was the last 2 years, right? Because sometimes you can be immersed in that your own clients or that week but it's important to look at the perspective. So that's what I do. I am a stat junkie. And I think it's really important to look at that in the big picture, because sometimes you can be misled by the small snapshot.
Yeah, misled by the news, misled by like one deal.
Well, I mean, San Francisco was getting, slammed in the media. And, first part of it was rightfully so, but property values were still going up, right? So, it's important to really know the market that you're selling.
And being a hyper competitive market, yet you still produce at a high volume, how do you, what's worked for you, and then what do you help agents now so that they keep growing and keep producing?
I think I tell my agents this when I meet, that I tend to be conservative, right? I will tell you what I think a property is worth, and then what you might have to pay to get it, and they don't go hand in hand. I think it's also important to ask your clients if they're trying to get the property at the right price or just get the right, the property. And I think that really is important to generate future business and referrals, is to have your client's best interest. Anyone can, an agent that gets every single property that they write on is not necessarily a good agent, right? It means they're paying too much, right? Like, you got to lose some to understand your client's needs and decide what they really want. So I think being conservative has benefited me, being an advocate for my client, really listening to see what they're trying to achieve. And I think that's what ultimately grows my business, because they appreciate that. They tell their friends, they tell, maybe I'm the old man in the group, but I tend to be pretty conservative, and I try to protect my clients, right? If something is not right in the disclosures, I'm going to let them know. If we need to do more due diligence on a property, I'm going to let them know. It's just, I think this is a long-term business, right? And this is true with agents, like your relationship with agents as well. Like, as long as you are honest and you have a good relationship and treat the agent and the client like you want to be treated, and protect them in the same way you'd want your family member protected, that will benefit your business more than making that $10 million deal that shouldn't be made.
Yeah, I think that's super important. And kind of taking a step back, looking at your story, you didn't want to get into real estate. You wanted to get into finance. You biked around the city as a kid. Your only child. When you look back and you kind of see this is kind of how it played out, why do you think, because you think in decades now, and
yeah,
why do you think it played out the way it did? And what do you think you learned along the way?
Yeah, I think it actually all goes back to, my growing up in San Francisco. I have a real love for the city. I mean, as I said, I was an only child, and maybe I felt like the city was my sibling. I also really like people. This is a people business. I think the biggest and best part of my job is getting the people I get to meet. Like, a lot of them become my friends. And, I think, you can make friends in finance or in any law. I think I studied law in college. It was the fact that you get to do two things. One, you get to be involved in someone's biggest purchase of their lives. You get to make friends and you get to meet people. I had a mom. My mom is still in the industry. My mom works here at City Real Estate. She's selling real estate for 50 years. I could see the happiness she got when she matched the person to the right house. And that's still the best part of our, one of the best parts of our job is when you see a property, it's the right fit, you get your clients in, you make the deal, and they live happily ever after for the next 20 years in that home. I mean, I still have clients from that first year in business still living in the home that I sold them. And that's awesome. That's real success. Not selling them 5 houses, is finding that one that is such the right fit that they last forever. So, yes, I could have probably been successful in other fields. But I think there's something that is human about real estate. Everyone needs a place to live, and everyone needs a friend. And I get to accomplish both those goals.
And thinking back to you bike around the city, just knowing it super well, do you feel that played into you just knowing the city so well, or?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think, a couple of things growing up in the city when you played sports, like there was few fields. So like I learned the city from playing sports as a kid. You had a game in West Sunset, then you had a game in the Marina Green. And so I learned the city that way. You had friends that lived in all different parts of the city. I mean, I think a city in general is the best form of education you can have, right? It's diverse. Taking the bus, you not only see every type of person, but you learn the city. I mean, I remember taking the bus, what it was, fifth, sixth grade, across the city, like to different neighborhoods. You hop on, you hop off. In my sophomoric days, I'd buy fireworks in parts of the city. I do things I probably shouldn't, but I mean, I think being in a wonderful place and being lucky enough to grow up here, I think I learned the city probably better than anyone.
Nice. And
I'm still learning it. I think that's also important, right? Like real estate is the best way to learn the city, right? A Tuesday broker tour, you go through 7 neighborhoods in a couple hours.
Yeah, you end up learning the insides and out, and you kind of see it a lot differently too. Now, when you look at like your entire journey through like entrepreneurship, being a business owner, there's ups and downs. It's never like a straight shot up. Can you talk about maybe a time where it might have been a little more tough or like or lower?
I mean, there's been years. I mean, 2020, I was worried COVID, right? I had to make sure that my employees got paid, right? It doesn't matter for our business that much if the prices are up 10% or down. Like stagnation kills our business, right? Like when
people are not moving.
Yeah, not moving, not selling, no income coming in, right? So that was a tough year. 2023, when interest rates shot up, was a real tough year. I mean, I'll be completely transparent. I think we made $8,000 profit. That was all our profit that year. In that was a 50-person company. I mean, it was we have never let anyone go. I mean, 2020. I mean, that has been a fear of mine, right? Is that if the market changes, I want to make sure that my employees can put food on their table. Like I've never fired anyone in my life. Like I don't want to start, I don't want to start doing that now. Sorry, I guess I forgot the question, but
how did you deal with that like moment when it's like $8,000 in profit? I'm sure mentally, like
I didn't hire more. I mean, that was in that position, and I was so thankful because the year before is the one I was thinking about hiring a sales manager. I didn't hire more, and I think when times get tough, you can do one of two things. You can say, woe is me and work, or woe is me and worry about it, or you can just put your head down and grind. And so that's what I did. I worked hard. My agents worked hard. And then last year was a very profitable year.
Yeah. And I'm sure you also, like as a leader, you want to make sure everyone is, I guess the question would be, sometimes there's a time to be transparent. Other times you want to like withhold, not have them like worry.
I'm transparent.
Transparent?
I'm transparent. I tell my agents, this is a, it's a tough time. We need to, we haven't cut anything. We've never been in that position, but I let people know, like, it's also for them, because if it's tough for a company, it's probably tough for them as individuals. They're probably having a tough time. And so sometimes it's a bad expression, but misery likes company, right? It makes people feel better knowing that they're not the only one. But at the same time, you can't just say like, woe is me. You got to offer suggestions on how to improve their business. Like, what do you do in this time period? Like, when the market is tough for sellers, it's a great time for buyers. Like, you got to pivot. And so, sometimes it's how you frame the situation and how to go to your clients with the situation. I mean, when interest rates shot way up, people, it was tough, like, because prices didn't go down automatically. So how do you get your clients to sell when prices are on the way down or things like that? Well, it's how you frame it.
Yeah. In every market, it's like you have to adapt to the market, but you have to keep taking action kind of regardless of what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a key lesson in life, right? The people who adapt are the ones that are successful.
So, Where should people go if they want to like follow you, keep up with what you're doing, or just kind of learn more?
I'm like probably so social media. I don't even know what our password is. It's I think our name is City Real Estate on Instagram. I think that's, but I mean, just send me an email, David at City Real Estate SF. That's probably, I'm again old school. Like that's the best way. I think you know, again, just if you want to talk to someone, pick up the phone, right? Like I think that's the other thing. People send texts, people send Instagram direct messages. Like just call the person. You get so much more in a 5-minute conversation than you can have, an hour-long emails or hour-long, texts or anything like that. Just call the person.
Nice. And you should go follow you at City Real Estate.
I think that's what it is. I don't know. I think it's at City Real Estate. Yeah, something like that.
A few rapid fire questions.
Sure, I'm ready.
When you think of like marketing, where it's worth it versus not worth it, like what do you think is like worth your time, money, and energy versus maybe not?
I think SEO is actually important. Optimization on search engines, that is, something that we've done that has really brought leads that we didn't have before. There's organic ways to do it. And I think it's worth hiring a third party to help you with that.
Really quickly, before we get back into the episode, did you know that email beats the ROI of social media 40-1? If you want to turn your email list into more listing appointments, then you need to check out Ella. Ella is the only email marketing agency for real estate agents. We help you build a hyper-local email newsletter. We also send conversation starter emails, and we do way more. So you can turn your email into a profitable marketing channel this year. Click the link below, check it out. Hope to see you in there. Nice. Let's get back to the episode. Software, you mentioned a lot. Like, is there any one or two pieces of software you're like, okay, this is worth every dollar we pay for it?
So I don't use it a lot, but my agents use Follow Up Boss. It's a CRM, and it's incorporated in everything, and it helps them manage their clients. So that's the one my agents like, Follow Up Boss.
Nice. And you're big on learning. Is there like either a book that you just gift a lot, or?
So I think the best, I mean, this sounds obvious or dumb, but I think following the news. Right? I read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Chronicle. Knowing what's going on in the world really plays an impact on real estate. Looking at the stock market, it's funny. Like I haven't logged into my account to know where my portfolio is, but I look to see where the S&P, the NASDAQ is, especially in San Francisco. It plays a real impact on our market. So knowing the world, understand what's going on politically, going on economically, in technology, is what I study. I don't study books or have coaches. I study current events.
I think it kind of goes into like Warren Buffett. I think he spends like 4 to 6 hours a day learning, just like keeping up with everything, so he can make just a few big moves every year.
I think that's important, right? And it also explains things, right? Like, when uncertainty causes stagnation in our market. And there's been a lot of uncertainty and a lot of things with tariffs recently and, interest rates. And so understanding why things are happening in the market is important, not only for your agents, but also for agents to communicate to their clients.
Yeah, I agree. And one piece of advice on like growth from everything that you learned, like what would you say around like growing?
So going back to what we started about, the word strategic, right? Don't grow to grow. Grow for purpose. Grow for the person. Grow because the person you're acquiring or partnering with is going to make you better, not just to have more numbers, not to have a bigger company. I think that's the most important thing. Make sure it's a fit, because if you grow to grow, you're going to poison the well.
Yeah, that's really good. So everything that you've learned up until this point, if you could say, like, what does world-class leadership mean to you?
Putting others ahead of yourself, right? Understanding their needs. If they are successful in their growth, you'll grow with them.